This video contains gratuitous use of profanity and uncomfortable pauses to compensate for lack of professionalism and original thought. Viewer discretion advised.
Island. We are the Nerdy Manroom Show with your hosts, Hassel and Monster. Monster, kick us off, bud.
Yeah. So let's well, first let me ask you how you're doing, because it's like a heat wave here, and it's normally not as hot here as it is down there. But like just walking the dog earlier, about an hour before we started recording, I can deal with the heat here because there's usually a breeze, but the sun is it feels like it's touching the top of the building. It's so close. Yeah, it's so hot.
So like I was in between facilities a lot this morning, or heading into what was supposed to be lunch, and it was like overcast, got a little bit of rain, and then as I'm coming back to the plant, the sun creeps out. And if you've ever been to South Georgia, people, when the sun creeps out after a little bit of a drizzle in South Georgia, Satan has nothing on the heat and the humidity. Because I got out of my trip the same time the plant manager did, and we both just looked at each other like, fuck. Yeah, it's brutal. And then we got another rain this afternoon, so I expect tomorrow to be hell.
And I've talked to some people I know who are work for the same company, and then some who don't, but they live overseas now in different areas, and they're like, yeah, it's a heat wave here. It's like 28 degrees Celsius. I'm like, dude, that's in the 80s, the 90s Fahrenheit. That's common here. They're like, yeah, that's why we don't live there anymore. Yeah, okay, great for you.
When I worked for the pipe company, they had a girl. She had moved from Brazil there, and like when it was starting to get in the spring, and we were getting like our 72, 73 degree days, I'm like in shorts. I'm loving it, and she's out there still in a coat. But then she's like, in the summertime, she said, to where all y'all are like super, super sweaty. I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
But she did say it was a different heat, like to where in Brazil, to where it like stays ridiculously hot all the time. She said she will say the heat here, because the humidity is just so much different.
Yeah, and I have a few friends with the company I work for now that live in Brazil, and I've had a couple of them invite me down. I just haven't made it down there, but they're like, yeah, it's vastly different here. The funniest part, and I'll make this a quick story, but we were in a training class in Miami, and one of the friends of mine from Brazil was up, and this was the first time I'd met them, and they were like, hey, yeah, like, man, I thought I was coming to America. I got here, and I thought I went back home. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, dude, it's like Brazil as soon as I get here. He's like, I didn't leave. I was like, that's just strong, man.
He must have walked in the heat and slums.
Yeah, but on a good note, he was a huge comic fan. Like, I had a couple of graphic novels that I just gave to him that I'd gotten at Ollie's for like $7 or $8. And he's like, dude, I can't get this down there. I love this. So he wants to come back and visit again, but he hadn't made it back up. Pre-pandemic, this was all pre-pandemic. After that, nobody's making it up here. But we'll go ahead and get started with the show, and we'll do our normal. Like, we'll thank our sponsors as normal, the Zone Collectibles. You can find them at their store located at 305 Main Street, Tifton, Georgia, or on the internet at thezonecollectibles@gmail.com, and on Facebook at The Zone Collectibles. Visit them for all your nerdy needs, from comics to Legos, trading cards, toys, games, and more. Help them support the local artist community through their cause of bringing unity through community. Fandoms unite.
And speaking of the local artist community, let's don't forget, on August 13th, they're having their first annual local artist expo at the Tifton Theater. They rented everything out. Tons of people there as part of the second Saturday celebration downtown. So there's a big celebration already in the downtown area as well. So it should be a pretty big event. There's going to be all kind of artists on stage. Daniel Garcia, of course, will be there as a guest of honor. We're going to be there as assholes of honor, and we're going to try to do a live show. So just come down. It's August 13th, and it's from noon till 6.
Yeah, and since you brought that up, a couple of things that I had in my Geek Week this week, I'll just go ahead and share them now. But for everybody out there, we are recording on a Tuesday this week, which hasn't been too far from the last recording we did, which was like 2 days ago on Sunday. So our Geek Weeks will be short, but Before I forget, San Diego Comic-Con is this weekend, which is one of the reasons we wanted to record early to make sure we had plenty of time to check all that out. If there's anything that's of huge interest to us, I'm sure we'll share it on the next episode. And then also this weekend in Ohio, in Dayton, Ohio, is Gem City Comic-Con.
Okay.
And I think PowerCon is in Columbus, Ohio, the He-Man and Ninja Turtles convention, and that's the weekend of August 5th, so that's coming up pretty soon, too.
A lot of cons, Monster. A lot of cons in your area.
Yeah, it just depends on if I'm here or not. I know the one this weekend is in Dayton, and that's only an hour from where I'm at, and I'm like, hey, I could go hit that one, but I also have to turn around and leave Monday, and I've got a 7-hour drive to Missouri, so I was like, I don't know if I want to go or not. We'll see. Maybe I will.
As long as we can pull the hat trick and get you to Georgia on the 13th.
Still working on that one. I'm not sure exactly 100% yet, but still working on it. But with that, let's do our Geek Weeks, and I think you went first last time, so I'll run through mine quickly, and it's going to be real short because again, it's only been like 2.5, 3 days for us at this point. Really, the only thing I've had time to do is I did watch A&E biographies. I finished the Ultimate Warrior, Bret Hart, and Booker T ones. I haven't started, and Goldberg as well, because it came out this week. I have not started the HBK one yet. I probably will later tonight or something, but all those have been really good. And I got to say that, well, I'm a fan of Bret Hart in the ring, but not necessarily out of the ring, because I always thought he seemed very conceited and into himself. But I got to say, on that biography, he was much more humble and grounded, he seemed like, when he was talking just individually.
The stroke done a lot for him, don't get me wrong, but he seems to be over some of the bitterness between, finally being able to come to terms with the incident. I think to a degree he's finally over the shit with Goldberg. He doesn't seem to harbor as much resentment as he once did.
Yeah. They've all been very good. I noticed there's a new episode of Rivals on there too, but like before, like we talked about, it's locked for some reason, so I can't watch that one. That's the Undertaker and Kane one, so I don't know when I'll get to see it. It might be when the next season drops and they unlock the previous season. But besides that, the only other thing I did was look at a couple of news articles that just caught my attention. One of them being Toys R Us is going to start doing their pop-up stores in Macy's again, but they're starting as early as this month so that they can have one in every Macy's store by mid-October. Last year, they only did a handful, and they started in like September.
Oddly enough, I heard about this at work today because our district manager was in there and he was speaking, and he was like, we don't know how much of this is going to affect us in our Macy's business because we don't know if it's like going to be a division of Macy's or are they just going to take over Macy's. I'm like secretly going, I kind of hope they take over Macy's. Now, I don't want us to lose business by no means, but
if it's like it was last year, and that seems to be the same other than how many Macy's they're going into, it's just little small sections. It's basically like going into your local Walmart and here's the toy section.
Well, you know how it is when you walk into a big Belk's in a mall. A lot of times they have a corner there that's random household goods.
Yeah, and if they're in there all by mid-October, they'll be out again by January, and then probably start a process again next July, I'd imagine. But besides that, the only other news article I read was that Netflix is really, really suffering financially. They're like, for some reason, I don't know if they've got a meeting or something, or they're announcing their revenue on Wednesday. But after Wednesday, they're saying that's when they'll be able to really tell how endangered they are financially. But they've actually, nobody else has stepped up and had any interest in them for anything as far as like personal stuff until Microsoft this week has signed some different deals with them. And a lot of people are saying that there's like $100 billion debt that only Microsoft could probably take over.
But dude, they put a shit ton of money into production of movies and shows and stuff. I mean, so it was, he was, I don't know if the subscriptions could justify the amount of money they were putting into the product, because they're putting out quality stuff. Don't get me wrong, they're not putting out old ham and egg or B-level movies. They're putting out A-list actors in really great movies that would typically be on in a theater somewhere.
And they're charging more for a subscription than any other streaming service, but they also don't have that revenue from ads, that ad revenue, which is one of the things that I saw with this Microsoft article. I didn't read the whole thing, but I skimmed through it. And one of the things that I saw from that was that they're going to be doing some sponsored ads and sponsoring some movies that they're making, and that's where people think they might buy them. But they were saying that if they were to do it, they would buy them and they would turn them into an ad streaming service and have tiered packages just like you do with Peacock. You can pay $5.99 a month and watch everything, but you got to watch ads in it. Or you can pay the $19.99 you're paying right now, and you can skip ads. I'll pay you and watch the ads. I'm cheap.
I would be extremely pissed if I wasn't still piggybacking off my ex-wife's account, so. The kid logged in here years ago, and it's just been there since.
So before I get you in trouble, the only other thing I have done this week is I did kind of start delving into my Hear the Roar, which is the unofficial. It's the unofficial unauthorized guide to Thundercats.
And that is thick as fuck.
I skimmed through it, and I started trying to read the first few pages, but it was like late at night, so I haven't gotten very far. But I did skim through. A lot of interesting stuff in here. I mean, they go all the way to where they've got the character profiles that were written for the show. They talk about how the show was developed, how all the toys were. They list out all the toys that were developed and the ones that were in production that never got made. I haven't read through all that, but I did find a chapter on Silverhawks, and that one caught my attention. I was like, oh, I wonder what I got to say about it. But it's actually very interesting.
Does it have pictures?
I think they have production designs for some of the toys as well as some of the animation scenes throughout it.
Well, I just need some pictures here or there.
The Silverhawks part was pretty interesting though, because it's talking about how they started developing that 3 months before Thundercats ever even aired.
Really?
Yeah, and Thundercats was the first for Rankin Bass, which is who put out Thundercats and Silverhawks and Tiger Sharks. Thundercats was the first one they made, and it actually didn't even start as Rankin Bass because that didn't exist. Rankin was actually working for CBS at the time, and I haven't gotten past that to figure out how they got into all of it, but it was starting to be developed and shopped around before that was even a company. And then as Rankin Bass became a production company, that was their first production. They started Silverhawks immediately before that even aired, hoping that they were going to bank on getting that in. So Silverhawks is considered their first true homegrown project because Thundercats actually did start there. I was like, this is pretty interesting. That's why I like stuff like this, but I haven't gotten far enough in there. Oh, there's sections too for both the shows about how they created the soundtrack for the theme shows for the song, which 1980s theme songs were great, but they talk about how they created those and all the soundtrack for everything.
It was like they put half of their budget, the entire series, in that theme song and the opening. Well, whether it be, probably from season 2 Transformers on, season 2 G.I. Joe on, Thundercats season 1, it just off the rip, just like it grabs you, Silverhawks, all of that stuff. And even Mask, like whether you're a big fan of Mask or not, I mean, I've rewatched some episodes lately, and it's not as great as I remembered it. However, that beginning intro, that and the cops, all that stuff, dude. It's like it grabs you, like you're like, oh shit. Yeah. Whether the show's good or not, that intro is going to get you.
And I brought that part up because that might come into play somewhat later when we get into our focus topic for the week. But that was all I had for Nerd Week because I haven't had that much time in the past couple of days because I have still been working too. So how was your week?
Mine was pretty slim too. Sunday after we recorded, I played some more of the Evil Dead, and I found unraveled a new layer of the game that spooked the shit out of me. Trees. You could be randomly walking through the woods and a fucking tree will attack you. Just out of nowhere, this tree will fucking grab your ass and smack the piss out of it, but you can't attack it afterwards. Like it goes back to being a tree.
Oh, that's just messed up.
Oh, dude, this thing just like, oh shit. Like I was just strolling along. I will say the 2 favorite weapons I found so far I like on there is a mace because it's just pretty brutal. One of he's got, a light and a heavy attack, of course, but then you hit R3 and he'll do specials. You hit R3, he will plant that spiked mace, in their nuts and start. I was like, oh shit, that's rough. Yeah. And the chainsaw hand's it's just gratuitous fun. I mean, you're hacking and slashing. It's slow as shit, but I loved it. I did find an epic sword. I was not impressed. I threw it back down and got my chainsaw. So I just kind of tooled around with it a little bit. Played a little more WWE 2K because I'm addicted to this game. At least
There's
the
a new
creation
DLC pack that dropped today too.
Yeah, that's the pack with Logan Paul, I believe, and Rob Van Dam. I haven't.
It's called the Hold Down pack. The Hold Down pack or something like that.
It'll probably tomorrow before I download it because the All-Star game is later tonight or so. once we get done recording, I'm going to watch the All-Star game. But I did stay up extremely too late Sunday night playing 2K. I did create me a Diamond Dallas page. High five. Monday, not much of anything. I watched the home run derby. Ronald Acuna shit the bed. He hit like a measly 19 home runs. He got eliminated. The big story was Albert Pujols. I mean, this guy, he's retiring this year. He's barely been much more than a designated hitter for the Cardinals. And he advances almost all the way to the finals. And it's sad because he actually advanced because of an error with the counting system. The guy he went against, they didn't count the guy's final home run. But time-wise, it should have counted, which would have allowed him to get an extra, I think, 30 seconds, which would have gave him enough hit home runs to advance. But because that didn't count, he didn't get the extra 30 seconds. Albert advances, which it wasn't really even harped on to the day, but it was just really cool to see him because he's a pretty humble fella. He's retiring, and he just he went all the way to right there just before the final round. But shit, Juan Soto, he won the thing. He's for the Nationals. We hate the Nationals, but he's a once in a lifetime generational talent who just turned down like $400 million to stay with the Nationals. So it's going to be interesting to see what that kid does to where he lands and who picks him up, because they wanted that's a ridiculous amount of money, but it was like over the course of 15 years. So, I mean, you could get hurt in 3 years and never play again, but you guaranteed this money. I mean, that's stupid to turn that down. I mean, I asked the Mets and Bobby Bonilla, he's still being paid. I mean, come on. So, other than that, so we got the All-Star game tonight. AEW wins the not a whole lot. I do intend to read some comics this week, so hopefully I'll have some comics to actually go over finally. And then, of course, San Diego Comic-Con this weekend. So
yeah, that'll probably consume most of my weekend just seeing what they got going on myself. But with that I think that brings us to our focus topic for this week, which is, it might be a little bit longer this week, so that's a good thing. But what we want to do is share some best and worst for us. So let's start this off with criteria like we normally do. What we're going to share is the things that we feel are personal best or favorites for us in 8 different categories that we have. We're going to explain to you why we feel these items are examples of what's good, in one of these categories, or what's bad. But these things could be moments in time. They could be particular stories. If it's something written down, it could be a movie, a character, a team event. So it's wide open. It's just, hey, in this category, what's something that stands out to you? And it may be based on things that we think are influential or not, but it's not something that we're saying this is what's influencing. So, for an example,
I mean, I'll be honest. For 90% of mine, it was just things that just influenced me. It was things I enjoyed greatly or disenjoyed greatly. One of the two.
Same for me. Like if we talk animated series, which is one of our categories, I've always said I think He-Man was one of the most influential, that started all your action cartoons out of the 80s. However, it's not going to make my list today because it's not as good as it was. It wasn't, it wasn't the top.
No.
In other words, this is what we feel is best and worst for us personally. If you want to share,
this is a biased as fuck episode. You're welcome to comment, like, subscribe, share, and give us your feedback.
Yeah, and feel free to comment on the stuff we talk about. If you hate it, you hate it. Tell us how all we're wrong. But if you also want to share some of your best and worst of each of these, please feel free to do that in the comments as well. And with that, that's pretty much all we had. So that's all the criteria we went through, right?
There we go.
So with that, we've got 8 categories. So since I started the Geek Week Castle, you can start the first focus topic. And
see what you did there.
Yeah. So let's start with sports. And why don't we do the worst first each time? I think on my notes I wrote best and then worst, but let's do worst so we always end on a higher note with the best.
Well,
you do your worst, and I'll do
best
mine,
and worst tied together. My best and worst tied together.
Oh, okay.
So I've got to stick with best and worst, at least on this one.
Okay.
My best is 80s and 90s Braves baseball. And a lot of that stems from, in the 80s, they were awful. We had Dale Murphy, and that was he was all we had. But I remember watching these games. My great-grandmother, she was like the biggest Braves fan you had ever met. And I don't care how loudly she was snoring on the couch, you were not allowed to turn this damn channel to cartoons.
She was going to wake up.
Because she was just resting her eyes, as she would always tell me, and she was listening. Apparently she was, because she knew if I changed it. So, it became a hate-filled passion of love at some point. And then, the Braves, they started coming on, and that's when they won like a ridiculous amount of division titles consecutively. We finally got a World Series in '96. Countless other World Series appearances, which is what leads. Well, when we got another World Series, finally this past year. But that's also what leads to my worst, Georgia sports. Because they're always just good enough to let you down like a good pallbearer. One last time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that would be my worst too, because, how many times do we get to the World Series to shit the bed, or get deep into playoffs to shit the bed, or play great all season long, shit the bed? Falcons, we had the most epic meltdown in the entire history of the Super Bowl.
That almost made my worst. Almost.
Georgia Bulldogs. It took us from 1980 to now to get another national championship when it shouldn't have, because there's several years where we had the talent to kick the shit out of Bama and we didn't. So that's why I stuck with in sequence on this one, Monster. I had to, because
That's fine.
one fed the other.
That's perfectly fine. Mine, and I'm not a huge baseball fan, but that '90s pitching staff in the Braves was one that was noteworthy to me.
You'll never duplicate that ever.
No, I was always more of a basketball fan, so most of my best and worst fall into basketball. But and I probably should stay in best and worst order of these, because they do kind of feed each other too. But my best was the '90s Chicago Bulls team. You got two three-peat championships. They won 6 out of 10 championships. And Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. You can throw Dennis Rodman, Steve Kerr, everybody else in there as well. But man, just watching them play was impressive, and it really got me into basketball at the time. And how can you? People all the time compare and try to say who's the best, but Michael Jordan goes out there, plays a game with the flu, still scores like 30 to 40 points.
There you go.
And then
speaking of that right there, I literally had pulled some statistics up last night, and I didn't even know you were going to hit into this. But I just happened to roll across this. And in the same place that showed me these statistics, it had a clip of the game that Michael Jordan had the flu, and it still scored 30-something points.
I think 38 or something.
But you got Michael Jordan versus LeBron. Top 75 teammates, Michael Jordan had 2. LeBron had 5. Seasons with 2 all-star teammates, Michael Jordan, 0. LeBron, 5. Top 25 draft pick teammates, Michael Jordan had 1. LeBron had 21. Missed playoffs, Michael Jordan, 0. LeBron twice. Rings, 6 versus 3. You know who the king is. Finals losses, Michael Jordan, 0. LeBron, 5. 5 time. 5 time. 5 time.
Jeez.
3 peats. Goes without saying. 2-0. So don't you ever tell me that LeBron's a GOAT. Ever. And the game was far more physical back then.
Yeah. Well,
I actually loved 80s and 90s basketball. I did. Huge fan. I mean, we had when you say the dream team for the Olympics.
Oh, dude,
that was wow. I mean, that's something to just go back and really be at awe over.
What
nowadays?
How do you? Yeah. No. And how do you think everybody else had to feel when they had to play the dream team? Just looking down like, oh goddamn, these dudes get paid for this, and they are the best in the world. What are we gonna do? My worst moment did happen in the '90s in basketball too, and it's actually the thing that probably pushed me the most out of watching basketball. And it was Latrell Sprewell in '97 when he choked out and beat down his coach. Because that was that was 1 year prior to the Bulls' last championship, because I think their last one was '98. But at that point I was kind of like, all right, so why are we doing it? Because basketball was, yes, a little bit physical on the court, but you never heard too much about the players getting into this. And you had somebody like Dennis Rodman.
Well, there wasn't snowflakes back then. I mean, like the Pistons had one of the most physical teams out there.
They were so mean.
The big white guy that was their rebound guy. His name escapes me at the moment, but my God, he was brutal. Like he'd be just like,
Yeah, but and if you go back and look in the 80s and 90s, early 90s at least, basketball players were very vastly underpaid compared
Oh
to
yeah.
baseball and football. Like before Jordan retired the first time, he was like the 19th most underpaid athlete for a star. But at this point, when Latrell Sprewell goes,
He
with
got
his
the bulk of his money from Air Jordans and his Wizards contract.
But this Latrell Sprewell's whole little meltdown to me is like, okay, now you guys are paying them more because they're making more money now. Now they're spoiled, entitled brats. And at this point, beyond watching the Bulls win again and then Jordan retires, I'm like, well, there's no need for me to stick around. I'm out. And that's when I really quit watching it. But that's the thing that made me want to quit watching. I only stuck out just to see the last of the Bulls championship. And after that, I was like, yeah, I'm done with it now.
I probably stayed there. I stayed till Jordan retired. I followed him up through the Wizards, and that was just what it was. God bless him. He still had game. He just was the only person with game there.
Well, that was his coming out of retirement for the second time, because
Yeah.
he actually purchased the Wizards first, and then when he saw how bad they were, he went on the court. But he was already retired from the Bulls. When he retired in '98 from his last dance, that's when I quit.
You got to figure around time he retired from the Wizards for a second retirement. All the old goats were leaving. I mean, Barkley, the Rodman, the big Pippen. I mean, those guys were, Malone. They were all, fading out.
Yeah, and that's pretty much. I saw a little bit of his Wizard stuff, but I didn't watch a whole lot of it. And honestly, after the first game I watched, where he scored more points alone than the rest of the team did combined,
oh, dude,
I was like,
that was every game. That was like every
I can't
game.
watch this.
Yeah.
He has no support. Now, he's great, but he still can't win on his own. It's still a team sport. Y'all got to step up.
He was trying to generate ticket sales because he didn't matter. He knew he was great. He wasn't going to tarnish his career. And at the end of the day, he's like, if I can sell some tickets by getting my ass on the pier and losing, so be it.
Yeah. But that was my sports. And so that brings us to wrestling as our next category. So you want to take this one over?
I got the early 90s through the Monday Night Wars.
That's your best?
That's my best. And I'm just talking era, not so much any one company, because if you look at the early 90s, I'll probably say that WCW was better bell to bell than WWF. Stories in the WWF are more captivating, of course, just production value, so forth, so on.
Oh, yeah.
But then when you go to the Monday Night Wars, dude, that's something that you'll never see again. I don't care how big AEW gets, they won't ever, be that kind of level. You know what I'm saying? So it was literally one of those, you hated to turn the channel to see what was on the other one, but you had to, because you know what I'm saying? Or you had to do like I did, and I would sit in the kitchen with the living room TV that I could see here on one and the den TV here on the other. And I was like, I could kind of gauge which one to walk back and forth at.
I had a VCR hooked to a second TV, and so I recorded one and watched one live, and then I would go watch the other one on tape. And usually I watched Nitro live and I watched Raw on the tape, because there was some parts of Raw I would fast forward through. Like, I didn't care about Kai and Ty or Val Venus, but I want Stone Cold, Mick Foley, all of them I wanted to see.
Yeah, I mean, I will say top to bottom, even when WCW started falling off, their show was still top to bottom better than WWF, but the Rock and Stone Cold segments were so, gravy. I mean, it made up for those bullshit segments with Val Venus, or when DX was terrible, with, whatever they were doing this week, once Shawn Michaels left them, and they were it offset, so to speak. But yeah, that was probably the best for me.
That's fair. For me, the best, and then I didn't pick an era for the best. I picked for this a specific type of match, and then I picked the Royal Rumble match. Ooh, I have always loved the Rumble. Now, I'm not going to say it's always the best match out there, because there's been a couple stinkers the last few years. But for whatever reason, from the time I saw the very first one, because I remember watching the very first one, I don't know what it was, because it's nothing more than a big battle royal, but it mesmerizes me. I'm like, I want to see who's coming next. I want to see who wins. It's one of those that just draws me in, and I love to watch it. I cannot miss it.
You can see the Pat Patterson wrote all over from the showmanship of, one guy coming down every 2 minutes, you get the big entrance, which has become a spectacle in itself, especially in the last 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
That big pop of who's coming next, the clock winding down. So, I mean, it's all the little minor details that, just make that into something. And then you have some Rumbles that are just, wow, that 92 Rumble that Flair wins, and I will say, out of all the Royal Rumbles, there's three. Okay, I'm gonna say my favorite. The 92 that Flair wins. The Rumble I went to in Atlanta where Triple H come back and won. But there was so many huge stars still in that one there.
Yeah.
Like Austin was in it, and Austin looked to be gonna do it. Mr. Perfect returns. There was a lot of really cool moments in that right there. Goldust had returned. And then my other favorite is one that Benoit. I mean, hate him or not outside the ring, I don't care. Bell to bell, his professional career wise, that Rumble he won right there. That was a great Rumble. Just the storytelling, the whole deal with him and the Giant at the very end of it. It was just no one expected that. Benoit had eased, but he always got slapped back down. And the year prior to that, his match with Kurt Angle still stands up to anything today, but that was a great Rumble, and so I mean, my hat's off to you. That's a great choice.
Yeah, and I do. Is it the best match? No, I mean, if I was picking the best match, I've got to go with Taker and Shawn at Mania 25, or Savage and Steamboat at 3. But it's just the match that captivates me. I was like, I can miss every other pay-per-view throughout the year if I had to, but I'm not going to miss Royal Rumble.
If I were having to single out a match as the greatest match ever, I'm almost going to have to do the double turn at Mania 13 with Austin and Brett. That match has everything you need. If you were going to introduce someone to pro wrestling, that is a match that will hook them.
That tells a great story. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it gives you everything you need.
So what was your worst for wrestling?
The last year of WWE. It's unwatchable. I didn't watch Raw last night because I watched the Home Run Derby.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet either, but I don't get it until Tuesday.
You know me well enough to know. A year and a half ago, would you have said that I would not watch Raw no matter how bad it got?
No, probably not.
Exactly. I was conditioned enough that I just weathered the storm. I don't even watch anymore. I will occasionally tune in to SmackDown, and that just depends on what's going on because Roman Reigns isn't there every week now. So if Roman Reigns isn't there, I don't even bother tuning in to SmackDown. So
I don't blame you. I fast forward through both of them and catch very little bit.
And I don't think them moving back to TV 14 is going to be the needle mover they think it is. I mean, I've heard all these superstars.
It's not going to make a difference. That doesn't matter.
It's not going to be the second coming of the Attitude Era. I'm sorry, it's not. You don't have the talent there. It's just not there. I looked at the results last night or today at work overall, and their big thing was Logan Paul announcing he's going to face the Miz at SummerSlam.
Yeah, and he's already announced that more than once.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, just looking at some things, the most interesting thing I've seen for SummerSlam is where Jeff Jarrett's going to be the special guest referee for the Usos and Street Profits.
I'll tell you what's even more interesting than that, or at least it was to me, is because I think it's going to be a SummerSlam, but Pat McAfee and Baron Corbin, even though I don't really care for Baron Corbin, Pat McAfee did a fantastic job of building that match in his promos.
He's actually really good. I don't like Logan Paul, but I will say he does respect the industry enough. He's put the work in. He looked great at Mania, whether you like the kid or not. I mean, he's a very hateable person.
Yeah.
And I mean, I say he's a person. I say probably more like character because, he's about making that money and he's smart enough he can make you hate him. You'll tune into what the fuck ever to see him lose.
But how bad is it that the guest stars are more entertaining than the actual full-time?
That's my thing. Like Kevin Nash said, no one has heat. And you don't just look at none of these. 5-10 years ago, you could look at these guys like, man, I would have fucked with him. Other than maybe like an almost, they don't have nobody that I say, you know what, I wouldn't fuck with him. Because there's several of these like, I'd slap shit out of him. And I'm not no big bad bully by no means, but yeah, they don't have nobody no more. They just
No.
and it used to every guy in the locker room had that little. Oh, yeah, I don't want to fuck with him. Other than Bastion Booger or something, you know.
For me, I picked the worst as Undertaker streak ending. You and I have talked this before. I don't think it ever should have happened. I think everybody else is saying it shouldn't. Even during his biography stuff, everybody's like, "Oh, this shouldn't have happened. We shouldn't." All the way down to Vince, who would not quite say it in the minute. Everybody else was like, "Yeah, we should have done that."
Well, I get what their philosophy behind that was. They thought they were doing what he was giving back. Mark loves the business well enough to want to give back. So he felt like with what Vince would give him, he needed to give back. But you didn't need to give that to Brock Lesnar.
No.
And you sure didn't need to lessen yourself even further by losing to Roman later because it done nothing. I mean, by the time you lost to Roman, it done nothing. If Roman had been the first one, maybe.
Yeah, and if you'd have built him up off of that, sure. But I just think, he was, it's not going to tarnish his legacy, right? But he was there for so long, he sacrificed his personal life to play the gimmick the entire time. Why wouldn't you have let him leave with that one more thing on his resume to say, hey, this is what makes him one of our absolute legends?
Yeah, because if he'd have been a diva, he would have had a lot more title reigns than what he had.
Yeah.
And let's face it, Undertaker's like a 5-time champion, and that's counting world title reigns during the SmackDown era that he got late in his career. I mean, he held the WWF title for a week and a half, maybe, and he lost it back to Hogan. He doesn't touch the belt again until WrestleMania 11. No, WrestleMania 13. I'm sorry, WrestleMania 13 when he beat Sid. He only keeps it a handful from Mania to SummerSlam. Loses again. And look who they had in feuding with. And I'm not knocking the guy, but like his first, I want to say his first title defense was Mankind. His second title defense in a pay-per-view is Farouk. Like I said, I'm not knocking Farouk. I mean, Farouk was a hell of a hand, and I mean, he was the first black heavyweight champion. Had they built him that way the entire time, it would have meant something. They didn't. He looked like the leader of dinosaurs. So, I mean, let's just be honest here. Vince done him no favors building him as like he should have. So, I mean, he just didn't get a fair shake. And it was when he finally starts feuding with Batista and winning the world title far later. Well, I mean, he had some, I guess, decent runs with,
but it was never
beating the Rock. He never beat Austin for the belt, but he did beat the Rock.
But he didn't need any of that either. He could still perform without it. So I don't know. I just think
he was one of those guys that never needed the title. Like they say, some guys never need it. He never needed it.
No. So let's move to our next category, just in the interest of time. And our next one is TV shows, non-animated. So these are live action TV shows. Whatever. Again, it may not be a show. It may be something else. But best and worst. So what you got for best on this one?
Walking Dead. Pre-Rick leaving.
That's fair.
There's never been a show that just I had to I couldn't miss an episode. And not only when I say couldn't miss an episode, my family had better shut the fuck up that night. For that 1 hour, no one was allowed to speak. You spoke during commercials. Like my kids would not come to the living room if Walking Dead was on because they knew. They knew how I was going to be like, oh, we don't speak. They're commercial, we speak. And that's how I was with The Walking Dead up until Rick left. So to me, that was can't miss TV.
So let me ask you a question on that one because it's one of the greatest shows out there to me that they've put out. But the first season when they reran it in black and white, did you watch any of those?
Yeah, I did.
I felt like it had more of a it felt scarier to me in black and white. Like the in color really wasn't as scary, and none of it was really jump scare for the most part. But the black and white of the first season, which had a little bit more of that jump scare, tried to spread throughout it. It seemed creepier when you watch it with no color.
It had a George Romero vibe to it. I will give you that.
Yeah.
It had, which is what I guess they were going for. But if you'll go back and watch the first season now, the zombies were or walkers were far different in the first season than they were every season moving after that. Like they were actually thinking zombies in the first season.
So we talked about this once before, and I got to looking online just to see if anybody else had really brought this up. And I saw somebody with a great theory about that. There was like, yes, they were, but if you think about it, they had just died, just started decomposing. When you get later on to like season 7, 8, 9, they're completely decomposed zombies unless it's somebody who freshly dies. So yeah, you can see them being a little bit more of a shamble because they really don't have as much. They've become more carnal, more animal-like, right? They've lost what intelligence they had. Maybe they had some when they first turned. I was like, that's not a bad theory for it. It doesn't explain all of it, but that's a little bit helpful.
It's not other than the fact that the freshly dead seem to go straight into the mannerisms of the current walkers. But I mean, that's me though. And I tried to watch a few episodes after Rick, left the show.
I've seen every season. It wasn't except for the one on right now. And I'll finish it, but they're not as good as once he leaves. But for me, I picked Supernatural as the best. 15-year run on the show, and
so close.
It's one of those things though that I can turn it on anytime and start watching it, and I can find it on anytime as well. Like I travel for work, and if I get to Canada and I flip on the TV, I'm gonna find one of 3 shows on TV: Seinfeld, Big Bang Theory, or Supernatural. And I can start in the middle of a Supernatural show or the last 10 minutes of it and know everything that happened and know all the context. And I can still sit there and watch it like, oh, let me see this. I've never seen this before, but I still know everything that happened.
I've literally seen every season but the final season 3 times. The final season I've only watched the one time. But my bonus daughter, she was like one day, she's a binge watcher. So she was like, so what I need to watch? I was like, you need to watch Supernatural. She's like, just watch it. I said, look, the first couple of episodes, they're kind of cheesy. Power through.
Yeah.
And you're going to start getting into something. And as I know, she had to watch this show in like a record amount of time. It was like ridiculous how fast she had watched it. Like every day she was coming, you didn't tell me this happened. And I was like, well, of course I didn't. But then I was like, I was like, wait a minute. That's like way into the...
There's only like 2 episodes I cannot watch. The Bugs episode is just and then the episode in season 2 with the clown, it's like one of the first couple of them. Yeah. And the clown is just like, that's one of the creepiest clowns. I'm like, nah, I can watch that episode and fast forward through those parts, but that's it.
Question: what was your favorite episode of?
I love the one with the rabbit foot, where they get the luck powers from the rabbit foot. When he walks in at the end of it and Sam's tied up and he throws the remote control and hits the guy in the head, knocks him out, he's like, I'm Batman. That tickled me so much for some reason. I love that episode. Okay. That one and the one where they're trapped in the prison, where Lilith is coming after him. And he's like, I shot the sheriff. He's like, but you didn't shoot the deputy. And everybody looks at him like, did you just say that? He's like, eh.
Yeah, those are great.
So what do you have for worst?
Friends. And I won't go deep. I just hate it. There's nothing redeemable about it. There's nothing enjoyable about it. I had rather have diarrhea for 3 days in a row than watch a show.
Dang. I don't
it is a DS award winner for me.
Yeah. So I actually picked something a little outside the normal here. And actually I had a runner-up on this one that I have to at least mention. The runner-up was reality-based TV shows. They have ruined TV because there's like 45 of them on every channel and they take over everything.
Yes.
And I will admit, there's one on Netflix that I watch, but I can sit there and binge it instead of watching it. And it's just so stupid that I laugh at the people. And we have always liked, for whatever reason in my household, everybody loves So You Think You Can Dance. And I watch that and I will fast forward through all the judgment parts and I'll watch the performances of the dances and I'll fast forward through the rest. But what I picked as the winner is Fox Channel's renewal process. These jokers will drop a show in the middle of a show. They will get 3 episodes in and be like, oh, we're canceling it. And the rest of the show for the season is already done. And they leave you on a cliffhanger. They give you no warning. They are the worst. There's NBC's close second on this, but Fox is the worst. They will just stop. You'll get 4 episodes and they're like, we didn't like it. And somebody else will pick it up and it might run for 10 seasons, but it's like, what's going on here?
So many times Fox would have a quality show And then just before the season finale of the first season, they just stopped showing it.
Yeah.
And it'd be something they filmed. They filmed the entire damn season, but you didn't get it. Like when Sleepy Hollow initially aired, well, they stopped it, what, half season? And then later, I guess because people raised enough hell, they come back and they finished that season and done one more. But I wasn't invested.
Oh, no, they
in that.
done like 4 after that.
Yeah. Oh, I never went back to it. I was like, no.
I quit because they stopped it and I missed so much. And by the time I saw it was back on, I was like, what happened between here and here? I think there's like 3 or 4. It's on a CW streaming platform now.
And there was some show about an airport. It was a comedy that was funny as shit to me. And it wasn't Wings, but obviously.
Wings was good, though.
Yeah, but there was some show about, I forget what the hell it was, but it was about following this little young kid or whatever. It was a very funny ass comedy. Got about 8 episodes in. Done.
Well, with that, let's move to animated shows now. So same premise, but now we're in the realm of cartoons. And I will admit, I have not used Power Rangers in this, but just for the sake of argument, Power Rangers to me is close enough to falling into an animated show. You might as well include it there. They did not make any on my list.
Okay.
So what do you have for best on this one?
Snick, bitches. X-Men the animated series. I mean, it was just, was it the greatest ever? To a lot of people, no. But to me, it just, they tried to hit all the high spots that the comic fan. I mean, it was like the first. I mean, don't get me wrong. We had some good comic, shows here and there. Yes, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, the superpowers, Super Friends and all that shit, but nothing really seemed like an actual comic book. That was like the first one that just, to me, and I enjoyed Spider-Man, the animated series, but it didn't really feel like an actual comic book as much as a show.
Yeah.
X-Men hit all the boxes. And you'd have an occasional cameo here or there. Even though if you only seen Deadpool for 30 seconds in one episode, you got it. And it was like, oh, shit, look at this. Some of those are some of the more cooler moments to me anyways.
So pop claw quiz for you, because I just saw this the other day and I've never realized it. Do you know that X-Men animated series is the only superhero show that had an entire episode with none of the team on it? There is one episode in the last season with none of the X-Men actually in it. So it was shot with none of them in. They added a scene at the very end later on when it reran and threw Xavier in there for like one scene and he had no speaking lines.
What was the episode about?
Mr. Sinister's origin.
You know what? But I remember that episode being extremely campy, and which that whole season, that last season was bad.
That was after Fox had already told them they were cutting the budget and closing out the show, and the writers and stuff had already written everything, but they couldn't afford the animation anymore, and it almost became we'll just hand it off to somebody and let's finish it. So the animation was really bad. That episode.
Yeah, I remember they had to change animation studios, and that was kind of where it was like the episode where Beast gets taken in as like one of Apocalypse's horsemen. Could have been great, but the storytelling, you could tell they cut corners because of the animation.
Well, they told it like
an
animation story too.
Yeah, the animation looked real cheesy. I mean, during that last season.
But that entire episode had no X-Men in it originally. They added Professor X in post-production, closing the journal of his ancestor, but he never says a word. So none of your actual team of heroes is in it.
Well, that's kind of like a fun fact in Spider-Man, the animated series. He never actually throws a punch at anyone. He can only do swinging kicks.
Oh, go back and watch He-Man. They never actually show him punch anybody. They show the punch thrown, and they never show the result. They never show it to connect. They just show the result afterwards.
But you know what? I'm fine with it. The way they cut that, where you got your, and then bam,
it doesn't.
And then the guy goes flying. I'm fine with that.
It doesn't bother me. It's just some of those fun facts. But that actual episode of X-Men, though, even though if it had been done in the normal animation style, it probably wouldn't have got made because Jack the Ripper's in there. He's cutting out people's organs and harvesting their organs and taking them to Sinister. And he actually shows up on Sinister's doorstep with a bag of organs from someone, and Sinister gets mad because I told you to leave him alive. And it's actually the way that animation was done. You can't tell what's in the bag. The original drawings are like it's red. It's a brown paper bag and it's red and blue.
Oh wow!
Yeah, if it had been in the old animation style, they wouldn't have got that one passed. But I watched there's somebody on YouTube that just did ones like some of the subtext in a lot of that episode was really, really wow.
Okay. So what you got for best animated?
For me, I went with the so instead of a show specific or an episode, I actually went with the 1980s cartoon intros. Now that does preclude
What we were talking about
X-Men,
earlier.
Spider-Man, but every one of those intros told you the entire backstory, so you didn't need to start with an origin story. You got the whole story of what was going to happen in the episode. They were extremely catchy, and they got you hyped up to watch the show. No matter if you heard that from across the room, you're like, "Oh, wait a minute." I mean, if you hear mass start up across the room, or you hear GI Joe or Cops or any of them, you're like, "I know what's going to happen. I'm gonna go watch it," and you get hyped up.
But you know what? Like you said, it told you everything you needed to know. You could have never watched an episode. Catch that 2-minute intro. You knew enough of what you needed to know.
Yes.
And especially like, well, He-Man's, I held it off my magic sword. Like,
G.I. Joe, highly
me.
trained special mission force out there to defeat Cobra, who's determined to rule. I mean, you got the whole backstory.
Everything.
But also, besides just the music, watch the intro on all those cartoons. The animation on those intros is how they sold the shows back then. That was their pilot. The animation on all those intros, like Thundercats, has some of the best animation I've ever seen on an intro.
Dude, I can cut that on and like Gremlin, like time that. Dun, 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 like like literally, he does the same thing with Transformers. Like, if the intro for the first season is kind of, but you could tell by the second season they had a bigger budget. They put it in.
The third season one was amazing because they had the little fights and stuff in it instead of just them riding the Autobot and Decepticon symbols.
And I know this isn't what we're talking about, but dude, I mean, I noticed some of the inconsistencies in season 1. I didn't realize there's several episodes where, like, for just a small portion of the episode, Starscream's voice isn't the same.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've noticed inconsistencies, like with Devastator in his first episode, his head is two different. He's got 2 different heads throughout the episode. Like one episode, one he's got the visor like he typically has. One he's got separate eyes, and he's real GoBotish looking.
Yeah.
But like, there's the episode with I think where they find Jetfire. Starscream's voice for like a section of it is different. I'm just like, it's almost like they took Thundercracker and said, just try to sound like him. I mean, I've noticed, episodes where he's colored like Thundercracker or Skywarp or something like that. I mean, the coloring's wrong. So that's one thing. But the voice itself is just like, whoa.
The first or second episode has what's his name? The crane that they had, the yellow crane. I can't think of his name off the top of my head now for whatever reason. But he comes out and he's supposed to pull Optimus back up from falling off the side of the mountain because he gets run off the mountain. Yeah. And he's colored green and they call him Hauler. So now they have a whole separate character because Hauler never appears again. And the next thing you got the yellow one whose name escapes me for whatever reason right now. And he's never mentioned again, but they had to make a green colored toy version of him because he was in that episode. And they're like, oh, we got 2 toys out of it now.
I don't know why I want to call him Lift, but I know that's not right.
No, I almost said Hoist, but that's the green truck.
Yeah. Damn. Honestly, if you were looking for a good Jeopardy question, you had one right there because you stopped me in your boat.
Yeah. And I know him too because he's actually one I like, and I have actually sitting right there on my shelf. But I cannot think of his name to save my life.
All the more reason you should be ashamed.
Yeah. But with that, let's jump ahead to your worst before we run out of time on the show. Trying to remember his name. Pokemon? Is that what you said?
I fucking hate it. I despise it. I hate what it spawned. It spawned so much fucking trash anime bullshit in this country that was acceptable, and we now have. So fuck you, Pokemon.
I'm not a fan of it either. I attribute that more to video games than I do animation, though. But however, it did not make my list because I didn't think about it. That's how little.
I remember it on Fox. Like I knew that was time to turn the fucking channel.
Yeah. For me, I picked. There's a lack of certain shows out there that you can't get on streaming or DVD from the 80s. All this other stuff that they put out. I mean, I can walk in the store and find Jim Bob's, Tales of Suspense, but I can't find Dinosaurs or Visionaries or some of these others just because they're tied up in. I assume they're tied up in licensing and limbo hell, but that drives me crazy because there's some of those I really want. And I don't even need them rebooted. Just give me the old shows on the DVD so I can pop them in. Because me and the kid watch them all the time, and he's seen Dinosaurs because you can find little bits and pieces on YouTube, but you cannot find the full season and stuff.
Dude, that's what sucked so bad yesterday. Our a friend of the show, to the Zone Collectibles, is 8-Bit Zombie. He does a lot of really great graphics and dynamics and stuff like this. He does his own merch, but he shared the Dinosaur Saucers intro. Dude, I watched that thing and I was like, "Son of a bitch, I missed this show." Like it was just so great. And that's when I got to looking at the leader for the Dinosaurs. Was like, "Fuck, it's Farouk."
That's why you sent that to me. That was.
Yeah, I was like, I was
I
kind of watching that. I was like, "Hey, you, why did Vince do this to this man?"
I love that show, and it has a catchy theme song, and again tells you everything in it. But you're never going to get that or like Visionaries, which is amazing because Visionaries is owned by Hasbro, but they're still not. But they only own the toy and comic version of the license. I don't guess they own the animation one because they're still not putting it out anywhere.
That's sad. So with that, let's move on to movies.
Yeah.
What you got?
So I went for best. I went to Avengers Endgame, their Avengers Assemble scene.
Ooh.
Now there's a lot of stuff. I love Star Wars. I love a bunch of other movies, but to me that was just the most epic thing. I waited 40 years to see that on screen, right? I'm like, I wanted to see that superpowers, super friends, China super friends. Let's charge each other, good and bad guys. We waited to see that in live action, 38, 39, 40 years, whatever it was, and we finally got it. And I'm like, I can't pick anything else over that now. If I die after seeing that, I saw the most epic scene I'm gonna see in movie history to me.
That is as cool as that was. I was that way with the first Avengers. Like some of there's certain scenes in that movie that like you never like when Captain, Thor, and Iron Man get there for the first time together, and then that big fight scene at the very end where they're battling.
They spin around all 6 of them.
Dude, I'm gonna be honest. Like I was in the theater just thinking, I can die today and I'm fine. Because that's just something we never expected to get, and it was just like that. So by the time it got to Endgame, it is cool and holy shit as this is. Like when Cap grabs, I was like, but I mean, dude, I don't know. The first
what
one
got me more on that scene that makes me pick that one over any of the others they had is the fact that they finally said Avengers Assemble. And you had everybody they had at that point. It's like looking at a comic page at that point. It's like, oh, Spider-Man's here and Valkyrie's here. I mean, you typically you're not going to get that kind of crossover in the movies. Even with those that were crossing over, they're still going to leave out those little bit characters. They didn't leave anybody out.
I got chills when he said Avengers Assemble. Don't get me wrong, but I got bigger chills when they got the on your left.
No, that was
when that came across. I was like, oh shit! It was just like that was one of those.
Dude, that music. I'm a bigger fan of John Williams' music for movies than anybody else. If I had to pick the best theme song, I'm gonna have to go with like Superman from John Williams. But dude, that music fits so well in that scene too. Mm-hmm. So what'd you have for best?
Tombstone.
Oh, I love that movie. Watched it not too long ago.
I remember going to the theater to watching this with my cousin and my uncle. And before, I grew up on Westerns. My grandfather was a huge Western fan. But this one just was like the first one I remember. Like before this movie here, I'd seen some Westerns that, they just all seemed a certain type of way.
Yeah.
This one here just was like it had that gangster vibe to it. Like Wyatt and Dot were the two coolest motherfuckers on the planet. Like you wasn't fucking with them. They were like the John Wick of the Wild West. So it's just like, oh man, it's like, and everything about it is like, every scene is great. There's not a lull in the movie at all. And the fact that my daughter could quote that in Django, word for word. And if either one of them is on, like it don't even matter if it's the last 20 minutes. We'll sit down and watch it. That's where I feel I've done great as a father. So yeah, it's Tombstone for me.
So I will keep this short in the interest of time, but I was watching another TV show last night, just something I had on going to bed, and there's 2 characters in there who are kind of like the fighters of this team or whatever, and one of them doesn't like to use guns, the other one's like, I don't have a problem with it. So but instead of shooting the guy he was fixing to shoot, he's like, no, and he hands the gun over to the other one. He's like, well, give me the gun next time. He's like, and he's already pulled the clip out. It's like, it's a little late now. He said, give me the gun next time. I'm your Huckleberry.
That's what's up, right?
Then he's like, then he's like, that's a great movie. He's like, who doesn't love that? It's just in the middle of this little banter back and forth. I was like, dude, it just pops up.
And dude, I was so beside myself about a week ago when I realized that Ike Clanton is the guy from Avatar and Don't Breathe.
Yeah.
I did not like for years. I never made this correlation between them. It was like, whoa, wait, what? I said, I immediately sent my daughter and she's like, no way. I was like, yeah.
Oh, so for me, for worst for movies, I'm probably going to get hate for this one, but the all-female Ghostbuster reboot. And I will tell you why. I don't mind this being a female Ghostbusters team because the original Ghostbusters team was all male. But now the one woman who was on the team, Janine, she was not made to be a bumbling idiot like Chris Hemsworth's character was just because he's a guy. They made him a complete and utter idiot in the movie. Janine was witty. She, besides Venkman, she was the wittiest one out there. But this movie,
but he's the only good part of this movie.
Yeah, but the whole movie was not set to say, okay, hey, let's make a female team and that's okay. It's like we have to tell you every 5 minutes in the movie we're all females, and I cannot.
It felt like they hit a lot of token marks in that movie, and to me, Hemsworth was the only enjoyable part to me, honestly.
And I cannot stand Melissa McCarthy. And every time she gets on something, it's like she has to scream and yell and prove that she's a loud woman. And I'm like, we know you are. You can stop now.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that either.
And this was, the worst part of this movie to me was this was one of the first ones I went to watch that made it feel like this is a complete social justice, wake up and look at the world movie. And I go to movies to escape reality. If you want to have a strong female team in there, I'm fine with that because I actually, like I said, I love Janine in the first movie. She was the wittiest one in there besides Venkman. I don't need you to tell me every 5 minutes that you're all female and you're strong. I was like, if you are, just show it. Like watching Thor, you got that with Jane Foster and Valkyrie. They never once had to say they were. They just were. Yeah.
They were just badass and they moved on about it. And you could do a female Avengers movie as long as it's done in a way where it makes sense. And I'll watch it.
Yeah, and that's the one complaint I had with Endgame is that one scene where it just so happens that every one of the women show up. Why are they all standing in that one spot together at the same time? Why?
To tease the female Avengers. Because that book was out at the time where you had 6 issues. Yeah.
If you'd have done that and it had been natural, that'd been fine. But you purposely did this. Like that's what this movie was like. So it's just purposely there. I don't need that. But with that, what was your worst?
Bet I get more hate than you do, monster. Any, and I mean fucking any, Harry Potter movie.
Oh, I can't stand Harry Potter either.
Any. Fuck Harry Potter. Oh man, I hate it. I want to make his face look like Voldemort's with my boot.
I hate Harry Potter. And I can't stand people like, oh, it's the greatest literary class. Dude, I'll tell you what, I had an argument in Canada one day with some of the folks I work with, and I wasn't even in the argument. I walked into the middle of it because they were arguing over why Harry Potter is nothing more than a ripoff of Star Wars. And this person was getting very defensive about Harry Potter, and the others are just egging them on. They're like, dude, an orphan child taken in by a grand old wizard, trained to be the greatest hero of their era and stop this civil war. This is fucking Star Wars just rewritten with a British accent for everybody. I busted out laughing. And they're like, what? You're a big comic nerd. How can you say? I was like, I hate Harry Potter, dude. It's not for me.
No. Fuck the Potter. So yeah.
So let's move to video games before we get ourselves in too much trouble.
We just lost 10 subscribers.
Yeah. So what do you have for best for video games?
And I will reiterate, this is just because it's my personal favorite. And not so much favorite as in I have a lot of love for many, many games and genres. This game is just one that I could replay over and over and over. And I did replay it probably about 3 times. Force Unleashed.
That was a good game.
I loved it. It's probably like, you know, out of us, Josh is completionist. He will go after every trophy, everything. This was the first game that I done that with. Like I had to find all the holocrons. I had to find all the power crystals. I had to do, unlock everything. And I didn't want to do it with cheats or to buy this, that, or the other. Like I typically will take the shortcut and just buy everything and unlock it.
So I would
I
say
didn't do that with this.
as a quick aside, not to interrupt your stuff, but the only game that I finished fully, well, I'll tell you about it. Now I finished 3 of them, but for a long time, the only game I had fully finished 100% was Jedi Fallen Order. I've done it with the 2 Spider-Man games now too, but
Those are great. Those are great. And I will say a good runner up was the Transformers game that came out on PlayStation 4 a couple years ago. That's all G1.
Devastation.
Yeah, that one there. I couldn't remember the. I was trying to remember that there.
That was a good one.
That was just such a great nostalgic game. And then I bought the Ninja Turtle
terrible
ones.
gameplay. But I
bought the Ninja Turtle one thinking it would be just as good, but it was just fucking hard, dude.
That game had like
I didn't get enjoyment out of it.
Competitive gameplay of any game, but it was just nostalgically fun.
That's why I love it. I play games on easy for enjoyment.
So I actually put in here an arcade game. I went to the Uncanny X-Men arcade game. Because we used to go to Food Line and start playing while somebody was grocery shopping. Game. And hopefully you catch your friends there and you play together. But besides Ninja Turtles, which I think came out 3 or 4 years before X-Men, because I think X-Men was like 92 or so, and Ninja Turtles was 89 or 90. But these were the only 2 I've seen where you had that 4-player console. And for the grocery store we went to, it's the same console. They just changed out all the logos and the software, right? But
they probably throw a different JAMA board, a few logos on there, and it was a different game. But that was a great game that you're talking about. God, it was good.
And it was like, okay, that was the way of my grandmother or my mother getting me to go to the grocery store to help take the groceries in. I'm like, yeah. It's like, oh, you're going to the grocery store, because I wanted to go do 2 things. I wanted to go see what comics they had on the newsstand so I could buy some, because we didn't have a comic store. And then I wanted to go sit there and play that game while they got all the groceries. And you had to walk the store at the time. It's not like now where you order and pick it up. You had to go walk the store.
Yeah.
So I had like an hour or so.
That was an hour affair every time. So they'd be like, I require $2 in quarters and 2 comics.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And then you get home and you unload the groceries and you're like, oh, why did I carry all this in? But you did it for that.
Well, you look at the comic books and you're like, okay, I've got a few minutes worth of reading here. So
yeah, you just sit down to the side of the screen where they're not blocking anything, and then you go play.
That was a great game. I was gonna say the only other one that somewhat, to me personally, rivals that is the Superstars game that was at Food Line.
Oh yeah,
Superstars of Wrestling. I love that game.
The little 8-bit.
Oh man, well, it was probably about 10, but yeah, it was.
I enjoyed that too, but I spent more money playing Ninja Turtles and X-Men, but I liked X-Men more than I did the Turtles, even though I love that Turtles game. So what you got first? Oh, you go ahead. You went first this time.
I got the Nightmare on Elm Street game on NES. It is fucking horrible. And I'm sporting Freddy right now, but
I don't remember that game.
That game is brutally horrible. I rented it on the original Nintendo. When I went into a craze about 10 years ago buying old console games and whatnot, I bought it, played it 3 times. I was like, it's fucking trash. And now I have a Raspberry Pi that has, all those games on there. So
yeah, I do too, but I haven't even looked for that.
It's there. And like a couple weeks ago, we were all in the living room and I was like just scrolling through games. And I said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to try it again. And my bonus child, she's sitting there watching me play this. And she's like, this is bad. It's just like random, claws coming out of the ground. There's bats flying. It's just random shit. People walking. And it's just like you're walking up and down the street. And I guess you just basically, I kept trying to fight things and kept dying. No, you don't do that. You you just evade them until it becomes night. And when it becomes night, you can find your way to Freddy's house or Nancy's. Go inside and battle Freddy.
Really?
Which there's no winning. Because I tried 47 different attack styles. I may have got a quarter of his power off, and it was just like, but it ain't even like, with the Friday the 13th game where you felt like you'd done a whole lot of shit up until Jason hits you with that kill stroke and goes, you and your friends are dead. Because at least it was like, oh shit, that's kind of cool. No, Freddy's just game over. So, yeah, fuck you, NES Freddy.
So mine is not quite as in-depth as that. My worst is because it drives me crazy. It annoys me to no end. and it cost me a fortune because of my child. But it's these in-game skin purchases for games like Fortnite and Apex and stuff, and it's like we're not even getting a new character. We're just buying another look for the character you have. It's giving me no other power. It's not like, hey, I'm going to change from. So let's go like Marvel Ultimate Alliance where you have 4 skins, but when you got a different, like if you got Ghost Rider, then you changed him to Vengeance, you got a slightly different power attack with him, right? This is just it's the same thing. You're just looking different. And every time you turn around, they're putting out a new one, and it costs like 1,000 V-Bucks or whatever it is. It's like, well, that's $10 right there because a $20 card is like $2,000 or whatever. It's like, dude, this is so expensive. And every time I turn around, it's like, I want a new one. It drives me completely insane.
I get that, but at the same time, I get that because I'm one of them that will buy skins on other games. I don't play that shit there, but I will buy skins
I will
on other
buy,
games.
I will buy new characters like the DLC packs for 2K22. If it's giving me new characters, I'll go for it. Which I've got the season pass anyway because I bought the pre-order. But if I just had to go buy one and it's just a different look for the Undertaker, if it ain't a different character with some different moves and it's giving me something else, I'm not buying it. I've already got.
I will say on 2K, it does seem like each version of Taker plays a little different.
It's supposed to, and they all have different power ratings.
However, Rey Mysterio has 47 different versions. Everyone plays the same.
See, I can't stand that. Especially not if I got to pay
every single one. You go from anorexic Rey with no tattoos to the progression of tattoos is basically all it is. And a little pot belly by the end. That's really the only difference.
Oh. So what's our next category? Comics?
Comic books.
So what do you have for best in that one?
I have 80s, 90s Spider-Man.
Good
It's
choice.
just, that's what drew me in. And it wasn't always just Amazing Spider-Man. I was a huge fan of Web of Spider-Man, Spectacular. For some reason, I like Spectacular Spider-Man a lot more.
And most of those
the artist on that book, the way his drawing style just, oh man, I loved it. I got
tiny, right?
Yeah, well, that's where it kind of like I want to say late 80s to mid 90s, somewhere in there is my era. Up through Clone Saga. I'm sorry. Man, and I enjoyed Clone Saga up to a certain point. I mean, I didn't like the ending, but
I actually have those in trade, and I actually go back and read them now. I don't mind them, but back then it was a complaint. It's like, why you keep changing everything? But now I can read it and be like,
If you go back and read them now, it's like, if you go back and read them now, it's like, fuck, this literary, just masterpiece, by today's standards. But that was what drew me into comics was Spider-Man because he never seemed to get ahead in his personal life, no matter how big his glory could have been as Spider-Man, or how big as a win he got as Spider-Man. He always seemed to get just a boot to the head as Peter Parker. I just loved it. It was and the villains. That's probably the best rogues gallery in all of comic books. A lot of people will say Batman, and I get it why, but his rogues gallery surpasses Batman to me.
I like his better, and I like the Flash's better. To me, Batman, as much as I like the character of Batman, and I like him when he's in a team setting with like the Justice League and stuff, but Batman individually to me is not as interesting a character as everybody. And maybe it's because everybody hypes him so much. And it gets on my nerves that everybody's like, "Oh, it's Batman. He could beat Superman."
He has certain villains that I will pick up a book when he's fighting those certain villains, but I don't give a shit about watching him face Calendar Man or. I don't even want to see him face Riddler or Two-Face. I'm not very big on them or Penguin or somebody like that. To this, if it's pretty much not Joker, Bane, Hush at this point, I'm a big fan of. I don't fuck with him.
And I guess my other argument about Batman too, and I know we're taking up time with this, but I got to take an aside because everybody's always this argument of, oh, Batman's the greatest planner out there and he could beat any character, including Superman. Look, I get it. He's a great planner. He's good at that, and it does help. Like, so many Justice League stories, how he saved them and stuff, like the one with the White Martians and stuff, and how he pulled the League out of it. Sure, yes, I get that. But you can't tell me he's got any plan in the world that if Superman decides to be pissed off today and floats in outer space and shoots down his heat vision and lobotomizes the dude, you cannot tell me there's a plan to stop that. I'm
You better
sorry.
look at Injustice. It's going much more that route than it does any of the other shit.
Yeah, or go read The Boys because it would basically be Butcher against.
Homelander.
Yeah.
You're
So
not fucking with Homelander. I mean, it's
no,
just or Superman.
the only reason Batman wins over Superman is because Superman is who he is, and he's not going to kill somebody
He
unless
pulls his
he.
punches.
Yeah. For
So,
me, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say. So, what do you have as best?
I went with this is not my favorite storyline of all time, and I collected comics before this, but the thing that drew me into X-Men, which became my favorite, was the Muir Island saga.
Ooh.
With Shadow King. And I had picked up X-Men books here and there before. Mostly though, anytime I went, I was going to get Fantastic Four, and I could only get like 2 or 4 books because that was about all I was going to get for allowance, right? But I'd always get Fantastic Four, and occasionally I'd get like a Green Lantern and Flash from my 2 individual heroes I like. So I was going for one of those if I could find them, and Fantastic Four I could always find. X-Men I'd get occasionally, but that one cover where Colossus shows up in the Muir Island saga and he's on that cover and he comes in, and Colossus isn't even my favorite X-Men, but that made him into my top 10 right there in that one book, and how his characters portrayed stuff. And I was like, this is so good and it's got so much depth. So I bought the rest of the parts of that. I went back and found them in the grocery store and got them. And from that point on, I bought everything X-Men that they made. I went back and rebought old stuff. Like I went back and got Phoenix Saga. I went back and got trade paperbacks of Mutant Massacre or Inferno, and then I bought the entire run of the X Factor team up to that point because I love the original X-Men the most.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I need all of X Factor because that's them back together and it's more modern stories.
You don't know how hard it was to choose Spider-Man, as influential as Spider-Man is to me, to have chose that over Executioner song. That
is my favorite X-Men story.
Best stories of all time.
That is my favorite X-Men story and crossover. But the Muir Island one is the one that got me into them, so I had to give it to that one. But since you brought that up, I'm gonna go ahead and give you my worst, because my worst ties into what you were just talking about, and it's today's constant crossovers. In the past, in the 80s, the early 90s, in the 90s when we bought books, you got a crossover like Executioner Song. It's the one summer crossover, the one crossover they had that year, and yes, it might be long, but it was worth reading. Now, every time you turn around, it's like every 3 months they have another crossover, and it has to stop the individual book stories to tie into the crossover. Plus, they also making not just the crossover, but they're making a mini series that's the main part of the crossover, and all these are tie-ins, and then they're making 35 titles of tie-ins you got to buy if you want to read the whole thing. Or if you don't want to read those, you can skip them. I'm like, then why are they even important? Why are you even making them? That right there to me is that's a killer. When they did one a year or maybe even 2 a year, like Secret Wars or Operation Galactic Storm or Executioner Song, I was down for it. Now, I got Dark Crisis this month. Next month we got, or we had Dark Knight's Death Metal. Then we got Dark Crisis, and then after that, what's the next one? I don't care anymore. I'm tired of them.
Yeah, I read a thing the other day where they was bashing the new Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it was like, well, you can't watch Captain America and Winter Soldier, or Falcon Winter Soldier, and feel like it ties into Miss Marvel, this, that, and other. And I was like thinking to myself, well, if you actually read comic books, you could be reading Spider-Man every damn month, and it don't tie into fucking X-Men.
No.
Or Fantastic Four, or the Avengers, or whatever. That's the progression, the way the books should work. They're in their own little worlds within the same universe.
Yeah, well, let's just
I'm fine with that.
Logically, Spider-Man's in New York. Miss Marvel's in New Jersey. It's not that far apart, but unless he happens to be in New Jersey, just like you in Georgia right now, I don't know what went on in your world today other than us talking. I'm not there.
You have your problems, I have my problems, and we battle our own demons each day. We don't coincide with one another, and neither do they. So I was like, I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
I want them to tie together enough to where if you pull together for a team-up movie, I'm great with it, and it makes sense. But story-wise, you don't have to.
I just need to know you exist there. I don't need you to be in it every minute. My only problem is when you have a big thing going down and nobody else shows up and they're like right across the road. Okay, that's a little bit different.
That's a head scratcher. You're like,
But it doesn't have to be full on. Like think back to Infinity Gauntlet and Infinity War. Those doppelgangers in Infinity War would come out and attack the heroes. But you got maybe in some books you only got 1 or 2 panels of them attacking the main character of that book. and they still go in and get involved in the Infinity War, but you don't need that whole issue to tie in. That issue can have its own story, and then and Spider-Man gets attacked by the doppelganger for 2 or 3 panels, and then the doppelganger goes off or whatever, comes back maybe later or not, but
scurries back 2 issues later with Carry On or whoever,
So it tied in.
And that was always neat.
It tied into Infinity War, but I didn't need the whole book to take that as the precedent story because he had another story going at the time.
The worst one of those, without going into anything, was the World War Hulk one of Ghost Rider, where all this shit's going on with Hulk, and the whole premise of the book is like Ghost Rider's doing his own little thing. Hulk shows up, starts, but Hulk can never defeat him, but that's so he just leaves him the fuck alone. It's just like, okay, you literally just in this book made him not be able to defeat the Spirit of Vengeance. So he tosses him aside and says, stay out of my business. Why would that not play back into the big story at the end? And it didn't.
Yeah.
John Blaze went back to battling demons of hell. Made no sense at all.
Yeah.
None.
But the crossover, and that's a more modern crossover, right? Since probably the late 90s, early 2000s, they've been downhill.
Well, I get it. The writer of Ghost Rider probably thinking, hey, if we got to tie into this bullshit, I'm going to make my character shine. And I'm fine with that. But when you make your character shine to the point where you damn near defeat the villain of the whole crossover.
Yeah.
Or you basically do. He can't defeat you, but you don't really defeat him either.
Then why are we having this fight?
Why did you not show back up to help the heroes at the end? Because you could have been the linchpin, apparently, and you don't even have another panel in anything.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, why are we even having this fight?
Yeah. So for my worst, I was torn between the new 52 reboot, and I'll explain why in a second, and the current DC Wokeverse. And I hate them both for different reasons. I hate New 52, and it's not that there wasn't great stories coming out of New 52. I just hate the fact that it pretty much shit and erased all the continuity. And I get they were trying to draw new fans in, but it was a slap in the face to all of us fans that have been there for all these years.
So I will say this on that, not to fully cut you off, but the 2 things that I saw come out of New 52 that were actually decent was the stories that they were continuing from continuity. Like Green Lantern still had Black
Green Lantern and Batman kept most of their continuity.
Yeah, so those weren't bad. And then a couple of heroes that got some spotlight that had been shunned for years, like Aquaman, his books in New 52 actually built him back up. Now they did even better in Rebirth, but they made him a major character. They're like, well, underwater, he's almost as strong as Wonder Woman or something. So he's on up there, but he's not just talking to fish guy. Like when he stabs Darkseid in the eye with the trident and stuff, I'm like,
but you know what? That's more bad. Jeff Johns writing the character than anything.
Yes,
they got a serious shake at some lesser known characters, I guess. And with that, I said, I'm not saying there wasn't great stories come out. I knew 52, some reimagining of some characters that wasn't well deserved. I'm fine with that. It's just when you read comics, your whole life, and you just pretty much say, hey, we really need to spark and get new fans. So we're going to erase every fucking thing and start over. It's a slap in the face. It just tells you didn't matter the last 20 years of reading comics. Well, we want to pick up these people that's going to pick up four issues because they're disenfranchised and they're just going to later decide they don't like it either.
Yeah. And I only honestly kept buying Green Lantern. I bought Flash, but I thought that they dumbed Barry Allen's character down a lot, which annoyed me because he was one of my top 3 individual heroes: Green Lantern, Flash, and Spider-Man. And they made Flash a lot goofier than what he should have been.
I bought Green Lantern just because he continued his continuity. They did. Yeah. They just literally said, we're not going to erase it because we just built him back up with Rebirth, and I was fine with that. Batman, he kept probably 80% of his continuity.
Yeah.
He just pretty much got younger. So I was like, okay, I can deal with that. And I kept Justice League only because Jeff Johns was writing it and Jim Lee was doing the artwork. Jim Lee not being doing the artwork on that initially, I would have been done with it too.
I stopped everything except for Green Lantern and Flash. Now I will say I went back later on and bought some New 52 like trades just because they were cheap when I was at a convention. And I will say some of those, like the Aquaman stories, were really good. I will say that the Firestorm stuff they did was actually really good, even though it was only a year long book. It was actually had some good stuff. And Captain Atom actually wasn't bad, but it wasn't great either. But that's the only one that
I would have
picked up in
preferred some
retrospect.
kind of bullshit pulse wave that storms across the universe and makes character younger. Because I mean, I get it. Okay, Clark and Bruce were both entering, even by comic book standards, middle age. You know, they were both probably nearing 45. There was no way around it with all their experiences. So if something had to happen to, Magnetoize them like they did in the 90s where he got, a youth wave, I'd have been fine with that. Just don't erase everything. And if you want to divorce him up from Lois and somehow tear him apart, I would have been fine with the death of Lois before I would have, just that bullshit we got.
And you see it didn't work because they turned around and do Rebirth, which set everything basically right back to where it was. And even the stuff that was supposedly changed, they've kind of forgotten like 90% of that stuff altogether. Like it never happened.
Superman did not pick back up until he showed back up married with Lois with a beard, and he had a son by this point. And then what did they do? They just completely erased New 52 as this was just a portion of his memories surviving behind, or however I forget how the actual.
It was ridiculous.
It was muddled at best.
Yeah. So did you have something to touch on with the current stuff too?
No, I just don't like the woke shit. Where you're trying to erase characters. It's like right now they're trying to erase Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. Place them with woken versions of these characters, and I'm just not a fan of that.
Yeah.
It's trying too hard. I mean, we discussed this multiple times on the show. You and I, we both feel about the same. Create new characters. I mean, there's a whole fucking race of Amazons. You can make a somewhat woke Amazon. Well, it makes a lot of sense for a fucking Amazon to be woke just because of the fact that there's no fucking men there. So why wouldn't Amazon be lesbian? I'm fine with that. You make Athena or whoever you want to. Make her fucking lesbian and she can be the baddest bitch on the planet for all I care. I don't care. You can have another Kryptonian show up. I'm fine with that. And he can be the penis lovingest guy on the planet. I don't care. I don't care about that. Just don't change things. And I mean, I'm semi okay with the way that they're doing John Kent or whatever. It's just he doesn't need to replace his father to be a prominent character. You can make him a prominent character without replacing these people.
Yeah, and that's my problem with it because he's a newer character. So if you they have made him bisexual or gay or whatever he's supposed to be, I'm fine with that because he's a newer character.
He's a new character.
However, I don't need you to print it on the front of the book and call it out every few issues by saying, "Hey, remember this?" And then they print articles and they have other and I'm going to not call out any names, but there's a few companies out there that put online articles and they put it there basically as clickbait, but they do it every so often. I'm like, just because I looked at what the new issues about,
he could have battled
Darkseid
that episode, that issue, kicked his ass, and that's not showcased as he kissed his boyfriend, and what was one panel, of 32 pages.
Yeah, if he is, that's fine. He does it, that's fine. I just don't need to. I don't need that to be the most publicized part of the book because that's not what's selling the book to me.
With that being said, Monster, let's move on to collectibles.
All right, and let's do this one the opposite so we leave everybody on a higher note. So let's do the worst this time first.
Ooh.
That way we can do best afterwards and everybody's not quite as mad at us.
Gotcha.
So what do you have for worst?
Them dollar store bootlegs from other countries.
I didn't even think
when you see it say the Justice League, and then there's Spider-Man and Iron Man with a Superman and a Batman. We've all seen these pictures, and it's just like, man.
Since you brought that up, I gotta ask you because I don't remember if I sent it to you. Did I send you the picture on Instagram with the dude with the tattoo of Marvel across his back? And the A and the R is Superman and Batman.
Alex Ross, Superman and Batman, yes.
I was like, dude, I would be so pissed if I was him. because that ain't going away, and you ain't covering that up without covering the whole thing up.
That was actually a good tattoo. Like the quality of the tattoo was great. That guy just shit the bed. He did not understand the assignment.
No, he did not. Since you brought up that, it made me think of that because I remember that now. But those were terrible figures.
They were bad.
They still come out too. You see them all the time.
So what do you have as worst?
The repaints with no reason for them to be repainted.
Like kind of like the kind of San Diego Comic-Con Boba Fett.
Yeah. So
in blackface.
And when it's okay, if you're repainting the character because they had it, or you're giving the character, I understand using character molds and repainting them to be another character, unless you're just creating a new character. So for every Jedi out there, you don't need to remake the body molds of the robes because they wore the same stuff. But now, when you make up a new character and you're like, well, this is Jedi Tim, just because we had a body sitting around and you repainted him, I'm not with that. Transformers is the worst about that because my son collects so many of the ones they make. And they'll take like Scorponok from Beast Wars and they'll paint him, instead of being purple, they'll paint him brown, and now he's Sandstorm. No, he's not. Don't pull that crap. And then you tell me we got
Scorponok's third cousin that he battled to see who got to date the cousin.
And then they're like, we got 15 reveals today, guys, and 10 of them are repaints, and there's like 3 with new molds, and the repaints are ones that they just made up names for. It's like, no. And
with that being said, how much of that do you reckon?
Dang it! I remember that.
There you go. I knew it was something simple like that, but with that being said, how many repaints do you think we get during San Diego Comic-Con?
Dude, I don't know.
Let's go on record now and just make a wager. Let's just make a speculation.
Well, Hasbro is going to be showing stuff for every line they have, so man, that's hard to. I'm gonna say there's at least seven repaints. Nothing but a straight up repaint and a different deco. I was probably overestimating, but I figured between Power Rangers, which that's again that you can reuse the body mold for a Power Ranger really easily and repaint them into a different color Ranger, but it's a different character. I can G.I. Joe uses a lot of the same body mold parts from character to character, like Flint and Duke's upper body and is the exact same upper body, but they're painted different. They're different characters. But I just can't stand that stuff. We're like, oh, let's paint Boba Fett black. And if you're going to make it an exclusive that I don't need, then I'm fine with it. Like the Jedi Obi-Wan, they made 3 different versions of him. 2 of them are the exact same, but one's got a blue shirt and one's got a white shirt. I only need one of them. I don't really care.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm kind of pissed I didn't get the blue Target exclusive. I'm just saying.
If it's exclusive and I'm not doing a complete set, I'm fine with that because I don't need that. I don't know. The way they just keep.
I borderline
painted.
I know you like for the most part are MOC as shit, but you know me. I don't mind opening some stuff.
Yeah.
I found myself yesterday torn. So I got a really great deal on a Snake Eyes on eBay. It was like $12. And I was like, holy shit. And I've been wanting to open a Snake Eyes because I have the special edition, the Hasbro Pulse version that you helped me acquire. And then I have the one with Timber. I didn't pick up the original second figure in the wave, which was Snake Eyes. So when I stumbled upon him on eBay for like $12, it's like, fuck yeah, you're still MOC.
Yeah.
Great. And my whole thought process was to open him. I wanted to pose him with my other figures because I seen yours. And then I get him here and I'm looking at him. It's like the box is in great condition. And I'm like, I don't have this one. And he's on my shelf now in a fucking box. I meant he was bought to open. But the completionist in me did kind of like edge out and was like,
I can find you.
You probably want to keep him there. And I was just like, fuck.
I can find you an open one that's probably going to be about the same $10 or $12 because I paid like 10 for my open one.
Let your boy know.
Yeah, I will. But since you
don't let my fiance know though.
Since you brought up G.I. Joe, then I can understand repaints on them if you're going to do Duke and then you're going to do Tiger Force Duke. And if there's somebody out there who wants, if they want Tiger Force, they can buy the Tiger Force. And if they want the regular one, they can buy the regular one. But you ain't got to buy both.
But you know what? I'll say this. Look at Bazooka. We got Tiger Force Bazooka before we got regular Bazooka.
Yep.
Well, the figure looks great. I have no problem with getting both.
Yeah, if you want both of them, you can.
I have no problem buying both of those if I can find a Target exclusive one.
So,
but
like for me, and I'll make this quick, but there's two characters that they are making right now, both in Tiger Force with Outback and Recondo. That as a kid I had the regular versions of, and I always played with them on my team. They were just always there. So they're not even characters I cared that much for in the show or anything, but I always played with them. So I was like, I need two Recondos and two Outbacks, one to open and one to keep in package. If you're going to come along later and make one,
there were certain characters that were not prominent in the show that just were cool looking figures, and you had to use them.
You had to have. So if you come along and make a Recondo in his normal outfit, I'll probably buy him in the normal one, and I'll open the Tiger Force one. And same thing with Outback, because they're making Outback now in his normal colors too.
You know what? That's actually the smarter way to do that right there is put the variant out there first. Because the people are going to jump at it because it's the first version of it, and you're like, well, shit, we may not get the other one. So you buy that to where if you put Bazooka out there first and then you put Tiger Force, that's like, I'm going to choose between the two.
Well,
to where you put Tiger Force out first, and then you put, it's like, fuck, I got to have the original.
And Outback's the perfect example because I bought one Outback to keep in the box, even though I want to open him. I'm like, man, I really want to open him, but I didn't have him as Tiger Force when I was a kid. I had the regular one with the red hair and the white shirt that says Survival. Now they've come out and they've shown renders of that or said that he's going to be coming in his regular. I'm like, well, perfect. I'll leave the Tiger Force one in the box because he's exclusive anyway. I'm going to buy the regular one and open him and put him on the shelf. But with that, since we're running a little closer on time, what do you have for best for your collectibles?
I chose a line in itself, or not so much a line, a company, Sideshow Collectibles. They put out just such a quality product. No matter what license they're doing, everything they do is just superior to anybody else on the market. I mean, there's no way around it. Is this shit expensive as fuck? Yes, very. Yeah. But I mean, if you ever buy any of their stuff, you just, whether it's a statue, regardless of what size you buy, like with the Star Wars stuff, I got several different things. I actually have I don't know which size it is, but the Boba Fett that's about this fucking tall on the Jabba skiff from Return of the Jedi. I'm sorry, he's massive. I paid about $700 for him a few years ago.
Yeah,
but the quality is just ridiculous. And I have the Vaders about the 12-inch or a little higher. I think maybe that's the 112. I don't know. From Empire, quality, nice shit. I have a Venom bust that's just really, really great. I mean, I bought several Sideshow items here and out, but I mean they have lower end stuff that look good too. I mean, like I got some of the more. I have a San Diego Comic-Con Superior Iron Man in there. That's a Sideshow collectible exclusive, but it's made out of plastic resin, so it's in the box. Yeah, they're like $40, typically when you buy them. But just the quality of them are really great. So I mean, just as a company as a whole, they just put out a quality item from affordable to not affordable.
Yeah. For me, very similar. I picked something that's not necessarily even a line or a specific company, but it's similar in vein. I said Transformers Masterpieces. And I picked them because whether it's third party or official ones, they're always fun to play with and open them up and transform them. And for me, I got away from having my stuff open other than what I already owned for years that had been open. And everything was mint on card, which means you had very little posability and stuff you can do with them. And then these came along and I started opening one. I opened one and that got me buying more until I got a whole collection of them. And that's also what got me into, okay, well, I've got making a little more money now and I can afford to do it occasionally on some of these. But that got me to opening and posing other stuff. And I'm having more fun with it now because I still love having my stuff mint on card because that is me and I like that. But I have more fun by having the ones that I really want to open and display and make a team or a subset of, and I get to open them and display them now. And that's something that I had lost that fun of that.
You can be grown as fuck all you want to, but there's nothing like still popping that bubble, pulling it out, and just at first initial pulling out of the package, putting everything together, posing him up, and just kind of like checking it out. I mean, it's still you get that 7-8-year-old feeling back, And I know Georgia Monster would have never popped a bubble, never.
And to be honest, I don't even once I pose them once and get them, or a couple of times and get them in the pose I want to leave them in, I really don't even go back and touch them again. But I will stop and just check them out sometimes. There's more of a fun factor to it. But the way you said that reminded me of a reviewer I watch on YouTube, and his favorite thing to say at the end of his videos is, "You don't stop playing because you grow old. You grow old because you stop playing."
There you go.
I'm like, dude, that's how I feel. That's why I picked Masterpieces.
That's dropping some knowledge on some
into it.
motherfuckers right there.
But with that, in the interest of time, we'll move straight into Nerd Out. And anybody who's listening, we've explained this all the time. I'm going to save us a little time and not explain what Nerd Out is. But after we ask our questions, if you hear our answer, if you want to expand on our answers or provide your own, please feel free to do that in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And I know we've got a couple of them out there who have dropped some in, like Big Rob did one last week. So we always appreciate that. But with that, so I went first today on Geek Week, so I will ask my question first if you're cool with that, just to keep us on the same pace, because I'm trying to keep up with that now. So out of all the categories we had, if you could only pick one that you could have for the rest of your life, which one would you choose and why? Out of the categories.
Ooh, that's a damn good question, Monster.
It was hard to answer for me. I'm not gonna lie. I broke down to about between one or two things, but I finally had to pick one.
You know, as far as, I guess because the spectrum of it goes so far, I would probably choose Best Wrestling, just because there's just so much I could actually still go back and rewatch and still just never touch it all. So
That's fair.
I would probably be able to go back to the Best Wrestling.
See, I got close and I had to tear it down between what I go for between live action and animated shows or comics, because that's my escape from the real world. Either one of those. That's my de-stressor, my decompression, whatever you want to call it. I had to go with comics because even though I love to watch TV and movies and stuff, but the comics is where it's always been for me. That's my first love. And honestly, when I sit down and read those, it's not just escaping from that, but also if I want to go to sleep and I'm tired, I'll just pick a little bit more of a boring one and I'll start dozing off in the middle. I mean, I can do it for whatever reason. So I went with comics. But what question do you have this week for us?
Well, in honor of San Diego Comic-Con being this weekend, which San Diego Comic-Con exclusive did you most want in past years that escaped you?
Oh, the different Hal Jordans they did for Blackest Night, where they did the Red Lantern one, the Blue Lantern one. I did not get those, and I wanted those so bad. And I've tried to get them off eBay at different times, and they're
pricey as fuck.
Now I do have the White Lantern Sinestro and White Lantern Hal Jordan that were from different conventions of the year. Yeah, actually, I couldn't. I don't know if you can see them or not, but I think one of them is New York Comic Con, and I don't remember what the other one is, but I have both of those, and I got those for basically sticker price. I love them, but I would have liked to have had the red Hal and the had the red, the orange, the green, and the blue, and I would have liked to have had all those, but I just never was able to get them. What about you?
For me, it was the 2011 G.I. Joe Transformer crossover where Starscream was the Sky Striker. I've seen it a couple times in person. It's fucking great. It's amazing, but it's about a $300 piece now. But yeah, I want to say back then it was still close to $200. So I mean, price-wise, it's still pretty comparable to what it was. Because they've done several of those. They've done Shockwave as the Hiss, and I forget what's Joe they done as a tank or something like that. But that one to me was just the coolest because I mean it still looked like Starscream, but it had that Sky Striker body, and it just looked so good. And it's a grail.
I have seen that one at the local toy store here, but I don't know what they're asking for it. I'll have to look next time if they still have it. I figured probably anything from San Diego is, and honestly, so let me ask this as a bonus question. So San Diego Comic-Con is going on this weekend, and I got to be honest, it's not as, and I don't know if it's because of the pandemic and everything after that, but it hasn't been quite as hyped as it was in years prior to the pandemic. And I know I haven't gotten to go, and I don't think you've been to one either, but I always wanted to go to one. But do you feel like we might have missed our chance to maybe go to a good one because now they're not going to be as big anymore, or do you think they'll bounce back completely?
I don't think it ever bounced back to what it was pre-pandemic. If you notice pre-pandemic, they had some really, really cool exclusives. I used to look forward to watching on G4. You remember, like,
Yeah.
Take Out the Show would have like,
Yep, I remember watching that.
Comic-Con exclusives for like 3 days. It was like a 2-hour block each day. You got to watch it, and I would sit there and watch it and just like be feverish because you got to see so much cool stuff. Now, since I want to say probably maybe even a year before the pandemic, shit started being released online. Some of the exclusives were available for purchase through various sites online.
Yeah.
Since the pandemic, you can pretty much buy about any of this shit online if you want to pay a ridiculous fee from a various sites. So it's
And you notice there's not a lot of the movies that were going there. Some of that stuff is pulled back in this year,
Yep.
even getting back in there and stuff. And I get it, it's the first year back, but I just feel like I might have.
Well, that's where you got all of your cool
bigger version of it.
Yeah, like all of your cool nerd movies was announced there, like everything nerd movie wise, with the exception of some stuff that was shit out at E4. You got pretty much a lot of your cool nerd game stuff there. And then, of course, all your comics and whatnot. So, I don't know. I just don't think it'll always remain massive just because of namesake. But I don't think you'll get the actual vibe of the exclusiveness that it once had.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be. I think it will still be fun to make it to one of them, and I'm still going to try to at some point. That's kind of a vacation holy grail sort of thing. But
yeah,
I just don't know that it'll be the same as if I'd have went pre-pandemic. But then I looked too at the stuff today, like you and I talked, like McFarlane showed all his toys in a summer showcase because he's going to be at the Image booth instead at San Diego. So, and then you look at Hasbro Pulse announced their Pulse Con already this week. This is in September, October. So what are they going to show this week? They've already said they're going to have some reveals and they've got panels for all their products, but they're not going to give you the same level of showing if they're going to do their own stuff online in September. And it's like the last week of September, first weekend of October. So they're not going to show as much because they've got to hold it in reserve for there to make all their sales in, because that's how they get you on their channel to watch stuff. So
everybody's vying for that. Come look at my space.
Yeah. But with
that's us included.
Yeah. But with that brings this week's episode to a close. But before we leave, let's give a shout out to our friend, Mr. Daniel Garcia. His Kickstarter for Xyber Ronin is over, but the book is almost ready to drop. He's, if I remember right from the last time we talked, still looking at that August 13th time frame to getting some in some people's hands. But for more news about his stuff, you can check us out here, or you can follow him on Facebook at Daniel Garcia and on Instagram at D Garcia Comics. And while you're doing that, after you check him out, make sure you go check out our sponsor, These Old Collectibles, for all your nerdy needs. You can find them at their store at 305 Main Street, Tifton, Georgia, or on the internet at theseowncollectibles@gmail.com and on Facebook at These Own Collectibles. Help them support the local artist community through their cause of bringing unity through community. Fandoms unite. And with that, Hassel, we got a giveaway from our sponsors this week.
We do, not only from our sponsor, but from Mr. Daniel Garcia himself, who sent me actually the last page of Xyber Ronin today. It is complete. He sent me a really cool image of it. It looks really, really great. He was beating it up, but I was just like, dude, that's fucking amazing. Quit beating yourself up. It looks great. So it looks really cool. So courtesy of him, I have a print. I couldn't show it the other week when we gave one away, but this is the last of the I'm going to give away. And it actually comes with a cool ZOA from the Zone Collectibles, our sponsor. So we got both of our really cool people. And I've held off on giving something to this cat for a while. God bless him. He's one of our first subscribers, and he's followed us through all of this stuff. And poor little fella, I shit on him just because we love to give him hell. And he's family, so why not? But Casey Hutchison, you are the winner this week, buddy. You reach out to me, it's yours. But I'm gonna make you work for it. You gotta watch the show, and if you don't reach out to me, someone else will get it. So hey.
And remember, all you have to do to enter this is for the week of the giveaway is to like, comment, subscribe, or share on any of our social media or on our YouTube channel here. And Hassel, can you tell everybody where they can do that at?
You can find us on Twitter at Nerdy MR Show. You can find us on Instagram at the Nerdy Manroom Show. And you can find us on Facebook at Hassel Hutchinson. Reach out to us on any of these. And of course, we have a YouTube channel, the Nerdy Manroom Show. Like, subscribe, share. The more you like, subscribe, and share, the more you're entered into things like this. Comment. Just call us an asshole if you want to. It's fine. But comment.
And as a reminder, we do still have a goal of trying to hit 250 subscribers
250, baby. We got to
by
hit it.
October, and that'll help also support a big giveaway that we'll have, and we'll release more information about that as we get closer. But with that brings today's episode to a close. So join us next time where we're going to discuss the boogeyman himself, Mr. Baba Yaga, John Wick. Until then, live nerdy and be your best self.